Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Road to Greatness. My name is Elijah Satroni. I lost 20 kilos, stepped on a bodybuilding stage. I've coached hundreds of people to achieve greatness in the realm of health and fitness, as well as athletes to see some really amazing career highlights in their chosen discipline. And I want to use this time to just reflect on 2 weeks into my recovery phase. It has been one hell of an experience. I've had multiple episodes where I've overindulged. My food focus and desire to eat is significantly higher than even what it was in prep. And I'm having some internal conflict with how I look and just losing the detail, especially after peak week. And it's been tough. Like I've really found it tough, especially when it comes to trying to navigate the food environment, especially. You know, the first instance of this was post-comp. Okay, like I just continued to eat beyond fullness to a point where I felt like slightly ill. And I believed I'd have a much better handle on things, although it's turned out that my hunger and fullness cues, which I appear to have ignored during the prep, have sort of come back and are deciding to take revenge as I look at it. But regardless, that was the first instance post comp where I realized, okay, this is going to be a lot tougher than I thought. And from there, took that on board, had a really good, successful midweek. But the weekend rolled around and I had 2 social events on the weekend. The first one I did really well, managed my behavior around food quite nice. Okay, I can do this, that's awesome. The second social event, however, I did experience that same drive that I felt post-comp day and just let it rip, really is the best way to say it. Not in a bad way, absolutely not. Just very conscious of the fact that I had multiple servings of food and ate to a point where I was full, not sickly full, but I was full. Full as a house and full in my belly. But that was a win. It's like, okay, I didn't push it to a 10 out of 10 fullness. I pushed it to an 8 out of 10. So part of me sort of reflected and went, okay, I'll take that as a win, move forward from there. And so this past weekend had a similar event, but I noticed that this was more for me setting myself up for failure from the get-go. Okay, I left my dinner quite late. I had massive decision fatigue, and I caught myself eating more food than I would have liked. Although this time I stopped myself again at that sort of 6 or 7 out of 10 fullness. It was more just I was using food as a way to manage the stress that I felt going into that situation. And in catching myself from that, I was able to replace the habit with something else and set myself up for success moving forward. And that was the biggest thing I could have taken from that weekend, is going, okay, I need to ensure that I'm setting myself up for success from the get-go. Okay? And thinking back to, well, just the past 3 weekends, the internal conflict that I've been experiencing, I'll get there in the end, I believe is because I've fallen short of how I expected myself to behave around food during this recovery phase. And as a result, yes, I have gained about 4 kilos in the first 3 weeks. And to watch my physique go from exotically lean to dad bod-esque has been very challenging. And don't get me wrong, I am still way leaner than many people will probably ever be in their lifetime. And I didn't really take notice of the fact that, wow, like my body has certainly, I will never look at myself the same way again after competing. And that's not a bad thing. It's just that my standard or my level for what I believe is lean has completely changed. And I knew that kind of going in, but I didn't realize it until now. We're like, wow, like my goggles are well and truly shifted, and this is too bright. That's better. So, I'm not impressed with what I see, although I'm not angry or ashamed about it either. Okay, like self-discovery is the frame or the approach that I want to take going into this recovery phase. And part of that is giving myself grace for these mistakes and allowing myself to, again, fall forwards. So, I know I'm not going to get everything perfect, and that's okay. I will have setbacks and make mistakes, but this is an opportunity to learn from them, and it's an opportunity to make me better as a coach, because I have to learn from my own mistakes and walk a path that I didn't think I'd need to. Okay, if everything was hunky-dory, I probably wouldn't have to think of all these different solutions to problems. I would be just rocking on regardless. And while that isn't a bad thing, I get to tune my craft through my own experiences, which then I can pass on to clients. Again, walking the path of expansion, leaving footprints in the sand for other people to follow. And now I am very, very bright. The sun decided to come out. How good's that? So, again, it hasn't been all doom and gloom. I've just spoken about walking the path of expansion, and part of that is looking at the bright side of this coin. Okay? And I've been able to enjoy more of life, going on dates with my partner, going to dinner with my family. My training is better. I've got more energy. My mood is so much better. I feel like I can give myself to other things outside of just prep or my steps. And I have had the chance to be more social, which is really awesome. And so while I am slowly returning to a state of health, again, the role of recovery phase is to recover. Okay, so that might mean getting heavier than I will prefer. The game plan is to aim somewhere between 75 to 77 kilos, which puts me somewhere between about 6 to 8% above stage weight. This is very bright. Very bright. All right, that's better. So about 6 to 8% above stage weight. And there's nothing to say that hypothetically I don't feel good until I'm 79 kilos. That's okay too. All that might mean is that I marinate at 79 kilos for a little bit longer and allow myself to recover fully, and from there slowly trickle my way up into a proper gaining phase, which is very exciting. And that's something that we will touch base on more than likely in a couple of weeks. But inevitably, speaking of the off season, something I am going to try is capping my body weight, especially after having to lose 21 kilos to get down to stage condition. I believe I want to hold it at no more than 20% above stage, which puts me at roughly 85 kilos. 85, no heavier than 86. And so that's going to be something I'm going to trial this off season. Of course, depending how I feel, and now it's gone too dark. Oh, well, that is what it is. So depending on how I feel, the thing that I believe helps when it comes to not having such a heavy body weight during the off season is it means that I don't have to lose as much weight during prep. And that means my pre-prep phase is a lot shorter. It's also a lot cleaner, and I can be closer to striking distance to stage weight, which means that prep is easier. And that inevitably is the big thing that we're trying to do the next time we run this back in a couple of years, making sure prep is as seamless and as easy as we can make it. So, going back to the recovery phase, the 2 points that I'm going to be looking at in terms of assessing if I'm recovered or not is first how my sleep is going, and the second is my focus on food, or food focus, my hunger or my desire to eat. And while I've got to keep adjusting this is annoying. Right, I'm going to leave it there for now. So, while it might seem like there's subjective metrics, that is very true, but I noticed that my sleep was the thing that really suffered at the tail end of prep. I'm still waking up at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. So once that starts to shift more towards 4:30, 5 o'clock, even like 5:15, considering I go to bed at between 8:30, no later than 9, that's sort of the signal to me that, okay, I am starting to really recover and reap the benefits. Second to that, as I mentioned, my food focus or desire to eat. Once that's not at a point where I'm constantly thinking about food, or I find myself doing these little behaviors like staring into the pantry or staring into the fridge, that's my cue. Okay, I'm starting to recover and behave in a way that, well, a normal person would, for lack of better terms. And so I found having a structure or routine to my eating habits have really helped. And when I can, just being appropriate and very intentional, probably a better word to use, around my pre-bed routine or pre-bed habits. So reading or some journaling or even just some breath work, just taking control of my breathing, allowing myself to wind down, has really meant that I've been able to get some super regenerative sleep, and I'm not focused on food as much, which is an absolute godsend, to tell you the truth, because it means I can think of other things. And again, the plan moving forward, especially now that we've sort of had or gone through the tougher stages of the recovery phase, is to continue marinating at this weight. As I mentioned, about 4 kilos up, so I'm between, let's say, 74.5 and 75.5 on average, and just going to continue marinating at this body weight, keeping tabs on these subjective markers. So my sleep, a bit more objective, but subjective in terms of my food focus and my desire to eat, and leaning on my support crew as well where I can. I found, well, one, I did that during prep, and it continues to keep them involved in the process. The last thing I want to do, and this is something that I spoke about at the SNA conference over the weekend, is not painting myself as this perfect individual who gets everything right, that I still have my own struggles. And while that may sound a bit pithy, the point being is that a lot of people do look up to me as a role model. I'm very conscious of that as a coach. They look to what I do and hope to emulate that so they can see similar results in their own pursuits. And showing them that, hey, like, I have struggles too. Again, going back to having to solve those problems that I've been experiencing around the food environment, shows them that I am learning on the job just as much as they are. And it's this great way for me to connect with my clients as well. So that's why I really love leaning on my support crew and demonstrating that it's great to have people around you that you can come to and ask for help. Because there was a time where I couldn't do that. And the fact that I can is something that I do not take lightly. Now, again, using each of these mishaps or these mistakes as a chance to fall forward, okay, and turning stumbling blocks into stepping stones so that I can continue to progress. Because as long as I keep going, I know that I'll be okay. Like recovery is a phase, and that's exactly what this is. It's just a phase of a phase. And so that in mind, what I've found to help keep me going at least is just having some future plans. So this might be doing projects at home, or in my instance, I am moving into state. So there's a lot that goes on in that process. That's really kept my mind busy, as well as changing jobs and starting in a new gym. That's always very exciting. The second thing I've really encompassed the past couple of days is treating recovery like part of the prep. Not allowing the floodgates to open and say it's all loosey-goosey. It's like, no, while I might not need to be as rigid around what I eat or who I eat with or what I do during the day, I can at least give it the attention that it deserves. That's the big thing I'm sort of getting at here. It's not a matter of sticking to a meal plan or being super rigid with where I eat. It's saying, no, like, give this as much attention and treat it as seriously as you did the prep. Because having a great recovery is going to set me up for a great initial off season. And that's very, very important to me. The second thing, again, I mentioned in regards to just like pre-sleep habits or pre-sleep routine, even just something I do daily now, is a 10-15 minute block where I'll do some journaling and have a chance to just throw a word salad onto a bit of paper so that I can set my mind free of any thoughts that I have or anything that sort of comes up for me. And it also gives me the chance to see where my head is at and check in with myself. Because that's a big thing that I've noticed trying to build up what's known as interoceptive awareness. Shout out Eric Helms for that one. So that I can at least understand what my body's experiencing. And by communicating with my body and having that connection, I at least can make better decisions around what I'm currently feeling and how I'm going to choose to respond to that. So that's the other thing, just journaling and some mindfulness, 5, 10, 15 minutes, however long you choose to do it, be it an hour, for God's sake. Though I've always found benefit in allowing myself to connect with self. Because at the end of the day, I'm the one I'm going to be stuck with for my entire life. So I might as well get to know this dude and what goes through my subconscious. But again, the final thing, as I mentioned before, is just having a support crew behind you, okay, and being able to connect with the support team, doing things that don't really involve food. So I've been ice skating. I've been ice skating. I've been doing some projects around the home, been going with my mum to run errands or doing some shopping trips or a park adventure. Tomorrow I'm going to be at a concert. So all these different things that don't revolve around food but are still social and get me out of that environment are great ways for me to just connect with others and give back to those that gave to me during my prep, but also it takes me, again, out of that food environment. It gives me a chance to practice and be exposed to what it's like to actually be, again, a normal human, so to speak. So yeah, that's basically it. Just finding things to do while my body does what it needs to recover, because I'd rather be useful somewhere than reminisce or ruminate on my mistakes and on food. So I'll continue to share my progress through the recovery phase as we enter into our first improvement season gaining phase, which will be very, very exciting, to tell you the truth. I'm actually looking forward to seeing what happens there. And so if you've made it this far, thank you for tuning in and listening to my little ramble. My name is Lydus Tony. I walk the path to greatness so that in the hope that I can lead others there as well. I'll be here every single Friday with a brand new episode. And until then, take care, have a great week, and I'll catch you on the next episode.